Hello, Internet people. Welcome to episode 83 of the FlipScreen Games podcast, a weekly video games podcast where two buds from the same nation come together to discuss the wide, wide world of video games. I'm your host, Max Wright, this week joined, as always, by my good friend and co-host, Mr. Stephen Radford.
Hello, hello. How you doing?
How are you, Steve?
I'm
very
right.
well, thank you very much.
See, we're both we're so polite, so British. We're both asking each other at the exact same time if we're all right. You know, but we're also so British that if we weren't all right, we'd still say, yeah, we're fine.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, the response is always, no one's ever said anything of them, yeah, fine, thanks. Or
Good,
busy.
thanks.
Busy. It's like, how was your... If I ask someone how their weekend is and they actually tell me about their weekend, I'm like, oh, that was a mistake.
It's really
say,
concerning.
Yeah?
It was like, yeah, it was all right, you know, yours?
Well, yeah, busy, you know, one of those.
I don't want to get in a conversation with a coworker, you know, it's terrible.
Do you know what I don't like is when you go, oh, how you doing? And someone goes, oh, living the dream. And it's like, what, do you mean that? Are you being sarcastic? Do I have to worry about you? Yeah, am I worried about you?
Depends what kind of dream. Is your dream a nightmare or is it a dream?
Yeah, I'm just being chased by a clown around in my underwear around school.
There's spiders coming, surrounding me.
I woke up surrounded by spiders, living my actual horrible dreams. But this week we have some video games to talk about, right, Steve?
Yeah. Do they involve spiders? Maybe Resident Evil 4 does. I don't know about.
Yes, I think there might be a spider in there. Yeah, Multiversus. I mean, great. Going to the first thing. So, Multiversus. It was announced about an hour and a half ago that they are closing the open beta on June 25th, 2023. Now, what they mean by that is not it's launching in the full game as the full game. They mean that they are stopping the game as it currently is. You will no longer be able to play Multiversus, even though people that have paid for it, or people that paid for the sort of Founders Pack and things like that. And it's not relaunching until 2024 as a full game. I think they said early 2024. There's no real date. There's no real date for it just yet. So what they've said is, MVPs, thank you for your support during the open beta. The feedback and inspiration has been amazing. Open beta will close on June 25th as we prepare for a full launch in early 2024. Multiversus will be back better than ever with new content, features, modes, and more when we return. Now, I heard about this in the same way possibly you did, that Tyler Olsen in the Discord posted a link to this tweet and had the following to say. He said, having spent money in the game, only to have my excess cut off from it for more than half a year, it kind of left a sour taste in my mouth. And he asked any thoughts on this.
Yeah.
So
it's insane. I just don't understand it. From a company called Player First Games, they don't seem to be putting the player first in this instance. Yep. It feels so strange. For starters, I don't think I even clocked that it was an open beta. I knew it was early access, and I figured early access just meant that they're developing it, they're going to keep adding to it. Eventually, we'll get a 1.0.
Which we've seen in so many games. We've seen that over and over again. And you can keep playing the game even when there's sort of things still to come and you're still waiting for that big sort of 1.0 patch. You can always play the game because you paid for it. They don't restrict access for you.
Whereas an open beta, I feel, is exactly what I just played with Diablo at the weekend. It was completely free. It's limited content and I don't have to pay for a season pass. You know, if I paid for a season pass for the Diablo open beta, I would kind of expect to have that content. And it's not just season passes from what I gather in Multiverse. I feel like they've got a shop that you can also buy things in or buy digital currency. Even if not, right, you've paid money for the season passes. They've extended the season 2. Yeah. We've had 2 seasons. They've extended the season 2 season pass all the way up until it closes on June 25th. But it's very strange indeed. Very, very weird decision. And I wonder what's prompted it, whether it was the developers or whether it's Warner Brothers that's wanting to shut it down for a while. Maybe there's some licensing issues or something.
Yeah, it's possible. I mean, I've just looked up now. There is a shop, and it looks like there are 2 currencies. There's like a currency that in this specific screenshot, there's a lot of a yellow currency, and there's none of this sort of like diamond currency, which to me, the fact that I'm looking at a shop, all of this stuff that's uncommon costs the diamond currency, and there's like a plus button in the corner. That looks like you can pay for it.
Yeah, you can buy the currency. So if you spent real money on this, it's crappy. You know, granted, games shut down all the time. You might have spent money on Babylon's Fall, for example, last year, and that shut down within like 6 months. But the fact that Multiversus is coming back and presumably I get all of my content back, it's like, why don't you just keep it running? Just keep it up, keep it going until you're ready for a relaunch. In the same way that
Mhm.
Epic Games, when they acquired Fall Guys, they did that relaunch. We're starting again. We're starting season 1 again. We're calling it free for all, and it's going to be like you've got all of these different modes in there, and they've
Yep.
continued to add to it and start again with like the season 1 battle pass, and gave the people that spent money on the game some extras
Yep.
to say thank you for supporting and funding the game until Epic took over. It feels very strange. If I was Tyler and seemingly everyone else on Twitter who is
Mhm.
replying to the announcement, I'd be pretty pissed off. I haven't
I
played the
agree.
game. I haven't spent any money on it, but everyone seems to be annoyed
Yeah,
about it.
and rightly so, I think, because I don't know how well it was communicated that it would be, or if it was communicated at all until today that they were gonna stop the game and then relaunch it a year later. But it just seems like people that are maybe actively playing the game now, and they're like, oh yeah, this is my game. I play Multiversus. I play a lot of that. Maybe they've been waiting for new characters. They've been waiting for like balance patches and things like that, and now they just get nothing for over 6 months, possibly. Well, almost definitely over 6 months because it's shutting down in June. It's not opening again until next year. It's sort of like when you look at Smash Brothers when they finished all of their DLC and that game is now feature complete. They're no longer adding to that game, but they would have had one last balance patch, which is like, right, this is going to be the final state of the game, and now they just let the game run. They're not shut down Smash Brothers, which I guess is a similar in this because you have bought the game, you have bought content for it, and they could probably just keep the servers open as they are now, or peer to peer or whatever, and just keep the game in its current state until they're ready to release 1.0. Well, I don't think there's any need to shut it down, but like you say, it could be licensing. But then again, surely that's the kind of thing you hash out before you start making a game like this, right? You hash out the licensing. You say, look,
You'd
Warner Brothers,
think
we're putting
so,
all of these
yeah.
things.
Plus, it's published by Warner Brothers, so they own the IP
Yeah.
that's in the game. But
Yep.
it's strange. It's a weird one. I wonder if they'll U-turn on this decision because it feels like it's going to be an unpopular one, and they'll lose a lot of the kind of good faith that they've garnered among fans of the game. I know Pete was a big fan of the game when it first came out, and maybe they just couldn't keep up with adding content to it. But it seems like it was doing pretty well still. The founders, they were selling founders packs, right, which came with character tokens, so you could instantly unlock characters, exclusive banners, premium battle passes. They ranged from $40 to $100. So if you bought a $100 founders pack, it's gone. Like you don't.
Yep. You no longer have access to this game, and it's not like there's an offline mode, and they can just take the servers off and have it that you're just playing. You click on that game now, you can't play it at all. And I wonder if it in 6 or 7 months' time, whenever the game decides to relaunch, how many people will even come back? Why would you after 7 months of not playing a game suddenly go, oh, I'm going to come back now because they're releasing 1.0? Because they've ruined their goodwill. They've sort of spurned their fan base really. I think this is definitely going to be something they're gonna if not U-turn completely, they're going to make a change. They're going to say, look, okay, fine, you can play it peer to peer, stuff like that. But yeah,
I don't know. Yeah, it's a weird one. Very, very strange. I would I feel like if this was obviously an open beta and they didn't ask for money, I feel like I would feel differently about it. But the fact
if it was free to play and there was stuff, and maybe
if it was completely free, I could understand turning it off and being like, we're going to come back in 1.0. Or if it's an open beta, define the parameters at launch before people choose to buy these founders packs or battle passes or digital currency or whatever they may choose to, however they may choose to interact with your product. They should know up front that it's going to get removed and taken away at some point. Otherwise, it feels like a bait and switch. Or a rug pull. It's just like, oh, here's the stuff. Now you don't get it anymore. We've taken your money and we're kind of running with it. Granted, they said they're going to come back, but who knows if they're going to do a full launch in 2024? They're targeting that, but whether they hit that or not, I don't know.
Yeah, I also saw that the Founders Pack that was, when it was released, it was advertised as sort of wouldn't be here after, I think it was November of last year, right? They were, I think the game came out last year, and they said, right, by the end of November, or you can't get it. They then kept it on until sort of mid-February, knowing they were then going to shut down sort of a month and a bit later, or sort of announce a shutdown a month and a bit later. And it's just like, why would you keep the $100 version of the game available within a month of them announcing they're going to shut it down. Because people that maybe bought that last month are now going, oh, well, I've only got 4 months left with this game and I paid the same amount as someone who got it on launch.
Yeah. And it's being delisted in April by the sounds of it as well. So they're like delisting the game in April. If you don't have it installed by April the 11th, then you can't download it anymore. And then the servers will shut off in June. So if you want to play Multiversus, make sure to install it by the 11th of April or come back in 2024.
Yep. I mean, this would possibly also put me off personally by getting the game when it eventually comes out, because who's to say it's even going to be around that long anyway if it comes out and people don't come back or they've sort of ruined their reputation and people just don't want to play anymore. That could be a legitimate thing that happens. I think for that reason they're almost definitely going to go, all right, fine, keep playing. We messed up, kind of thing. But hey, it is to be seen. But I feel bad for people like Tyler who have bought it and he said it's left a sour taste in his mouth, and I don't blame him at all. There's no positive to this for anyone. I don't even see how this works in a positive way for Warner Brothers, to be honest. It doesn't give them any more time. It doesn't give them any more space on the game because people are still just playing the game. It's not, even if it's not in active development and they need more time to do things, people can still play the game. But yeah, I reckon I think that by next week, when we sit down to record next Monday, we're going to be talking about an update to this, whereby they've completely changed their mind or that they've changed the rules or
yeah. I mean, maybe you're right. I don't know. I'm looking at SteamDB, and granted, it's just Steam. It's not all platforms. Mm-hmm. But they've gone from an all-time peak of 153,000 players last year, 8 months ago, to a 24-hour peak of 800. So it's
wow. Okay.
There's not really that many people playing these days, and maybe that's because there's not a lot of content coming in. But I feel like they're kind of amping up for a relaunch, reinvigorate it. I can imagine with only 800 players peak. I mean, there's only 538 people playing the game right now. It's not sustainable for them.
Yeah.
But
thing is,
I feel like
just
keep it online and just keep it on live support, and then eventually be like, okay, we're doing a version 1.0, we're relaunching with season 3 kind of thing.
I feel like if what you said about those Steam stats, if it was they announced they were shutting down now, I wouldn't be as confused by this. I wouldn't be like, oh, but this is unfair, because fair enough, it didn't work. A lot of people bought money and spent money on the game, and it's a shame that it shut down, but we're seeing that a lot now. The fact that they're shutting down with plans to keep selling the game and re-release the game in a year's time is just a completely different kettle of fish. So
yeah,
interesting. But yeah, like I say, we'll keep an eye on this, and we'll see what happens next week.
Yeah, in the meantime, coming up in June, Diablo 4, but if you're looking for some other games to play, Game Pass is always a good shout. Although Xbox are ending the $1 Game Pass promotion for new users, which, to be honest, I didn't realize still existed. I don't know if
you're not. Yeah, I'm aware. Yeah, because I've always got people that say, "Oh, is Game Pass worth it?" And I always say, "Look, it's £1 for a month. Try it out, and then if you like it, go and buy it on CD keys or whatever for cheaper." And that's the way I was doing it for when I was using it. They've completely got rid of it, or they're saying that. Hang on, let me read the quote. We have stopped our previous introductory offer for Xbox Game Pass Ultimate and PC Game Pass, and we are evaluating different marketing promotions for new members in the future. So,
yeah, so it's PR.
Just because this is ending as it is, but just because this is ending, it doesn't mean that they're not going to release something else in the future. Maybe, maybe you buy a box of cereal, open it up, there's a Game Pass.
Maybe it's like a KFC Double Down job,
Yeah.
Like the Diablo promotion. Yeah. It could be anything like that, or it could be that they know that they've got enough market appeal now. Everyone knows who they are. They're like the Netflix of video games at this point.
Yeah.
So if you don't know what Game Pass is, kind of where have you been? And so do they really need to keep drawing people in with a $1 promotion anymore? I can imagine at some point they're going to switch off Xbox Gold and just do what PlayStation has done and be like, Gold's gone. And if you want it anymore, you've got to subscribe to Game Pass, and you get that with it.
Which I'm surprised that's not the case already. To be honest, I already thought that Games with Gold, also that Xbox Live Gold, whatever it is, was gone and it was just Games Pass Ultimate now. So that's surprising. I think there could be like you said, they maybe thought they've got enough promotion that everyone sort of knows, but it could also be that maybe they weren't seeing a lot of repeat customers. That maybe because I know people who abuse the system by just making a load of emails and they'll just have Game Pass for a month, move over, play. If they don't care about the achievements, they don't care about their progress and stuff like that. They just want to keep getting all those games for £1 a month, and they will do that. And I think a lot of people maybe do that. And I think it could be that because it's quite easy to abuse in that way, maybe they've decided to shut it down for that reason.
That's a very
Also,
inconvenient thing to do, though. Like
I agree.
I don't
agree.
feel like the majority of people are bothering with that. I think it's more just that they've got other things up their sleeve, or it's too expensive for them. Maybe too many people were kind of biting on it, and like you said, not then subscribing for a fixed a number of months that would cover that cost, because I imagine you'd need to then subscribe for like 3 to 6 months in order for them to recuperate the lost revenue that they would have got on that first $1. But I remember they did a promotion many moons ago that was 3 months for £1, and I subscribed to that one. It could be that they swap it out for something like that.
Oh yeah.
But I would guess not, based on what they've said. They would have announced that the $1 promotion for a month is going away, and here's something better. Maybe there's something for like $2 or $5 where you get buy 1 month, get 1 month free. Because even when I got Game Pass gift cards for Christmas from my brother, and when I put them in, if you sub and have it auto renew, they give you an extra month for free. For every single card that you put in. He got me 2 of them because it was for Christmas and birthday. So I got, for 6 months, I got 8 months worth out of it, which is really good.
Okay. I remember when the Xbox Game Pass first launched, a friend of mine, I think you could turn your gold into Game Pass or whatever. He ended up getting like 2 months.
Pete did that. Yeah, he stacked it for many months. I had my Game Pass because I was doing Xbox All Access with my Series X, which came with Game Pass and ended up working out cheaper than if you bought 2 years of Game Pass and the console separately. You saved like 20 quid on it. So that ended last year. So I started paying for Game Pass, and then my brother got it for me for Christmas, which was really nice. But I figure if you've not tried Game Pass yet, it's what's going to draw you in. I don't think it's going to be the $1 price point. It's probably going to be a game like Starfield or Redfall or something big. And I think Microsoft know that that's what's coming.
Yes, maybe what they don't want is, instead of people going out and spending $60 or whatever on Starfield, they want
it'll be $70 for Starfield.
$70 for Starfield. What they don't want is everyone going out and instead spending £1 or $1.
Yeah.
Just to play Starfield and then bugger off. That's going to be a huge loss for them.
Yeah, exactly. You pay $1 for the month, and then you just don't have to worry about plumping out for the big games that they've got coming out this year, because they've got some big titles queued up. I imagine they've got some more to show at E3 Summer Game Fest, or just their own showcase, or whatever they're calling it these days.
Feels like it's been already been like a busy year for games announcements and games things and blah blah. And we've still got E3 to go. Well, not E3 in its current form, really, because everyone's sort of dropping out. But yeah, we've got loads more to come.
Gearbox was teasing something as well, saying that I think it was Gearbox that's saying that they're looking at their internal calendar, and May looks really busy, so you should book some time off.
I saw that from who's the people that make was it Paradox? What do Paradox make?
Paradox?
Yeah.
Paradox Interactive?
Paradox Interactive. They announced some stuff recently, didn't they?
Yeah, we did the conversation about it a couple of weeks ago. City Skylines 2, they've done that Life by You presentation, which came out. Looks incredible. Looks like a real Sims spiritual successor.
Yes. Now they also said May to sort of keep yourself clear, I'm pretty sure. So that's interesting. Maybe we'll have a busy something or other there, eh? And at this E3, we might even see Microsoft talking about Activision games during their conference or presentation, because last week the Xbox's Activision acquisition leapt a new hurdle, one that I think we've been talking about for a long time, so we're not going to spend too long talking about this, but there was some talk, the whole thing that Sony's been saying, and a lot of the conversation has been around Call of Duty, right? Xbox saying that we're not going to keep Call of Duty. We're not. Sony worried that by having Call of Duty as an exclusive, it's going to hurt them and turn them into Nintendo, whatever ridiculous thing they were saying. And then we had Jim Ryan just saying, no, we just want to block this. We don't care that much about Call of Duty. However, now the CMA have said that new evidence provisionally alleviates concerns in relation to supply of gaming consoles in the UK. So basically, they're not worried that Call of Duty is going to be an issue anymore. They don't think that by having Call of Duty, that people are going to only ever buy Xbox and not buy PlayStation. I don't know what this new evidence specifically is. I haven't read too deep into it. Steve, you might know. Or it could just be something they're just using new evidence to sort of not have to go too deep into it. But
well, they say that the most significant new evidence provided to the CMA relates to Microsoft's financial incentive to make Activision's games, including Call of Duty, exclusive to its own consoles. So I imagine that Microsoft has shown that it's not going to be a big moneymaker for them to sell consoles. However, they have then gone on to say that our provisional view that this deal raises concerns in the cloud gaming market is not affected by today's announcement. Our investigation remains on course for completion by the end of April, which, of course, was the biggest concern they had, was that, Call of Duty was a big part of it, but that was a big part of it just for consoles. Console's not the only strategy and the only angle that Microsoft is going down. Obviously, they've got the Xbox Cloud Gaming. I do think, though, that yes, we've lost Stadia. However, this is the UK, it's the CMA, the Competition and Markets Authority. We've just had Amazon Luna launch in the UK. And you get that as part of Amazon Prime, I believe. So that may go some way to help them. They've obviously also signed the deal with Nvidia. They signed the deal with, I think it was a German company as well, like another cloud streaming. If they can sign a deal with Amazon to bring Call of Duty to Luna, I feel like then the CMA's concerns will be, for the most part, assuaged. Maybe they need to agree to give PlayStation a cloud version, but it seems like that hold up is coming from the PlayStation side, in that they're not willing to sign any kind of agreement.
Yep. Now, obviously, we might even see a Switch cloud version if that's the big pull there, considering there's no chance of trying to build
I genuinely believe that that's the only way we can get Call of Duty on the current gen hardware. If they're saying that they're going to bring, because I'm sure it was Phil Spencer that was talking about it not being a mobile version, because I think Call of Duty Mobile's shutting down. But it was going to be like the full Warzone that was coming to Switch, and I'm just like, how do you get that to run? I don't see how you do unless it's a cloud version,
or unless it's that Roblox version that came out a few weeks ago, where someone had made a game of Roblox that looked exactly the same. It's just running in Roblox on the thing.
That's pretty impressive.
That is pretty impressive. Like, a lot of work's gone into that, but I suppose it's just as long as you've got the assets. I don't know how easy it is, but yeah, I mean, a lot of people now that the conversation about Call of Duty is finally over, maybe just in the UK, maybe, but it's one step further. It's interesting that cloud gaming is such a sticking point for them, considering there's not been a truly successful.
But that's where they see the future going, because they've said that, having considered the additional evidence provided, we've now provisionally concluded that the merger will not result in substantial lessening of competition in gaming services, console gaming services, because the cost to Microsoft of withholding Call of Duty from PlayStation would outweigh any gains from taking such action. So Sony must have revealed their figures and how much money they make from Call of Duty and how many sales are made for Call of Duty on their consoles. And the CMA's just like, yeah, you'd be dumb to not put it on that platform.
Yeah, it's a huge money. Yeah, I'm sure every copy of Call of Duty probably makes them more than every Xbox sold. So.
Yeah, probably. I think Xbox Series X is still sold at a loss. So yeah.
I assume the yes is too, considering the hardware in it. But hey, I don't know the ins and outs of it. So we're less than a month away now from the final report from the CMA. Whether that means the end of the conversation entirely, I know it just means in the UK. But hey, a month's time, we'll be following back up on this for an even shorter conversation, because there'll be even less to cover. But I'm sure there'll be some things that pop up in the meantime.
Do you think it goes through? Because I don't know if you saw, but Citibank had like a call with investors and said that they're increasing the odds that they're betting on it, that the deal closes, from 50%, which is, they were really sat on the fence, to 70% likelihood of it closing. Do you think this goes through now? Yeah.
Yeah, I feel pretty good about it. I think PlayStation sort of completely shown everything they wanted to show, and they had a big focus on things like Call of Duty that has now, everything Sony has said so far has now been. If the CMA are sort of are happy, sorry, let me start again. If the CMA's only real issue is cloud gaming, Sony has no more say in that. I think their part is now done, and I think all Microsoft needs to do is, like you say, approach Amazon Luna or just prove that they're not going to try and monopolize cloud gaming, and I think it goes through. Maybe not as soon as, like, the joke I said earlier about June or for E3, but I do think that we'll see it by the end of this year. Which I think is one of your. Was it one of your, or was it Pete's?
Pete thinks it's going through. Yeah, I was gonna say it wouldn't go through, but I decided not to. I don't actually know if it closes by the end of this year, because the CMA's one hurdle. You've got the EU that they're still fighting, and the FTC in America is still suing them for antitrust. So it's quite possible that it goes through, but it's also possible that it doesn't. I kind of feel Citibank's on the money. It's more likely to go through than not at this point, because the CMA was a big holdout, and it feels like if they're willing to accept that yeah, Call of Duty is going to come to PlayStation, then that's great. But we'll kind of see if Microsoft manages to leverage it for other purposes. I can imagine they're going to want to get. I think they want the deal to go through to get Call of Duty on Game Pass, and that's going to be a big thing for them. And is that going to be enough, rather than the $1 promotion? Is that going to be enough to get people to subscribe to Game Pass? Would you pick up an Xbox and Game Pass to play the latest Call of Duty, or do you just not give a shit about that because your friends are all on PlayStation and you're on PlayStation, and you've had a PlayStation for the last 20 years?
Yeah, I mean, the thing about that is that there is no, my friends play on PlayStation, I'm on Xbox, we don't get to play together, because it's all cross-platform now, isn't it? You can just
it is, but it's still a pain in the ass, and I guess with Discord being on both of them now, it's less of an issue.
Oh yeah, huge difference that's made. Yeah. Especially because you have to, when we were playing Rocket League across platforms, I had to use my phone for Discord with and I had to hear this. I don't know.
I mean, that's still the strategy for Nintendo. Yeah, there's no built-in voice chat unless you're playing something like Fortnite.
Yep. Yeah, I always just Discord in one ear, switch out the other. But yeah, I guess I feel pretty good about it now. It doesn't affect me in any way, but hey, it's been fun to talk about it for months and months and months. And maybe sometime soon we'll hear if Microsoft gets to keep Activision in its house. Speaking of keeping things in houses, we're going to do some housekeeping, Steve. I just wanted to give a quick shout out to all the Patreon producers for the month of March. We've got Arnold J. Rimmer, Christopher Valenz, Earth Visitor, Gabriel Hasselmeyer, aka Asobi, Snack Hugo, Ty the Dude, and Waka Hula. Steve, is there anything else going on that we think the listeners should know about?
No. Well, thank you all so much for supporting us over on Patreon. If you want to support us on Patreon, if you want to gain access to One More Thing, which is kind of on hold at the moment anyway, or just support us in general, get your name read on the air, your name in the credits at the end, and we've got some other perks coming up. Then you can head over to Patreon, patreon.com/FlipScreenGames. You can also head to FlipScreen.games, where you can find everywhere we are on the web, of course, including our Discord. A bunch of new folks have joined lately to come join in the conversation, and we're going to answer some of their questions at the end of the show.
Yes, we are. Yeah, we've got a nice question block. We already sort of covered one of them, but we've got a nice little question block to finish off. So, all right, let's get into the next headline. This is some news from sort of last week and maybe a little bit of a leak from earlier this week. But it's about Resident Evil 4. The game launched on Friday. We already knew from a week before that the reviews were glowing and people are really enjoying the game. And I think that for me personally, now I've seen that the performance on Steam Deck seems to be good in the final version. I'm probably going to pick this one up fairly soon. I've been sort of playing through some games, but I've been really antsy to give this one a go. So last week on the launch date, there was, at the end of the trailer, they announced that the Mercenaries mode DLC is launching for free on April 7th. I think Mercenaries has been included in quite a few Resident Evil games at this point. It's sort of once you beat the main game, which generally they are quite quick, and the idea is you sort of maybe play through a few times and speed yourself up and find things. This is just like another way to make the game longer. And I think maybe we sort of knew this was coming just because of there's been mercenaries or in loads of different games. And I think the last two Resident Evil games have had entirely separate multiplayer modes. I think it's called Reverse or
Reverse is their online multiplayer, and you get access to
Yes.
that with Resident Evil Village, I believe. I think you also get it with
Yeah.
Resident Evil 4, but Mercenaries is like a little separate mini game thing that they add in. I think it originated in Resident Evil 4 and then like the original Resident Evil 4 and then has kind of continued on since then. It wasn't in Resident Evil 2 remake, but it was in 3. And I think it's been in 7 and
it was
Village.
In the 3DS ones as well. There was I can't remember what the 3DS ones were called, but they had mercenaries modes inside them as well. I'm fairly certain.
Yeah, basically you've got to kill as many people as you can within
survive
a set time limit.
And then you unlock new characters. And I think even the DLC for part of the Winter's DLC for Resident Evil Village added 2 new characters to that mercenary mode. You could play as what was the sexy tall woman?
Lady D.
She would Dumatresque. She was playable, and there was also Heisenberg was also playable. So yeah, this could be
from popular TV show Breaking Bad. Yeah.
Breaking Bad, you had the pork pie hat. You threw meth on the ground and exploded. Really good. So I wonder if we might even see more characters and things. I mean, maybe expand on this in the future, because it seems like there is more DLC coming. People have data mined the game, as they love to do, in the sort of weekend since it's been out, and there's evidence in the files that there's another DLC coming, which is titled, it's either Another Order or Separate Ways. In the files, I think it's Separate Ways, and that was the name of a mode in Resident Evil 4. After you beat the game, you unlocked Another Order or Separate Ways. I think it was different depending on what version of the game you're playing. I don't know if it changed between like PS2, GameCube, or Wii, or if it just changed between regions. But yeah, there's sort of 2 names for the same thing, which Separate Ways was you played as Ada instead of Leon, and I think the sort of story, it was like 5 chapters of story that ran sort of concurrently with the game, and there are parts where you're at another part in the game where Leon's nearby, and I think maybe there's crossovers, sort of like when you play the A and B story modes or A, B, and C stories in Resident Evil 2, where sort of like, you see Claire and then you move on and then Claire sees Leon. I think it's
you have that, and then they also added in the Ghost Survivors mode. Did you ever play any of those in 2 remake?
No, I don't think I did. No,
they were like little side stories of people basically like kind of left behind. And there was like a bunch of different ones. So you had the side story for the gun store owner, Robert Kendo, the estranged daughter of the mayor, Catherine Warren, USS member called Ghost, and Sheriff Daniel Cortini. And they were like little non-canon stories of like, what if this happened scenarios that they added in. You then got the 4th survivor mode, which I think was in the original Resident Evil 2, which if you complete the 4th survivor mode of Resident Evil 2, you unlock the Tofu survivor mode of Resident Evil.
I remember this. Yes, I do remember this.
Where you then attack Tofus instead of...
you play as a Tofu.
Oh, you play as the Tofu, yeah.
You play as a block of Tofu,
Yeah. Or a flan.
Yeah, with just a floating knife hanging around,
Yeah, it's weird. It's so weird.
Now, it's interesting that this was in the original game and it wasn't in so this, I'm talking about Another Order, Separate Ways, whatever. It's interesting this wasn't in the remake, but it does seem like it is coming back. But I do wonder if it's going to be part of a season pass or if it's going to be free like the Mercenaries mode is, but it's not even been formed. I reckon this is a kind of like an E3 announcement.
I think it's probably going to be free in the same way that they added in the Ghost Survivors mode. Because, if the stuff's already in there, it's not like a downloadable content kind of thing. I mean, DLC, you're just paying to unlock it, essentially. But I'd like to think that it's a free mode, draws people back in, but it could be more like the Winters expansion where it's like we've added this content in and kind of this is now a separate thing because you got the 3rd person mode with the Winter stuff as well as the whole new story.
Yeah, I think they if they expand on this, maybe make it larger, but also include some other modes, I could see it being part of a season pass. But I think if it was just this mode that was in the original game, remade to be up to scratch with the rest of the sort of the remake, might be a little bit shady. But thing is, I don't think Capcom do shady stuff. I think that in the recent years, I think since Resident Evil 7 launched and beyond, Capcom have been proving to be just one of the, they're proving why they're one of the most popular and well-known game publishers and developers, because they are just creating, banger after banger. They've got, they've redone Monster Hunter a couple of times. They've redone Resident Evil, like completely revamped it. And I think that Capcom are just going to keep doing things like that. So I don't think it's going to be like, I think if they're going to make you pay for it, it's going to be a substantial upgrade. I've really enjoyed the DLC for the Resident Evil games, specifically the 7-bit DLC and the Village DLC. I think they were nice side stories. You got to play as different characters. You got to interact with the game in different ways. Did I tell you I played the 7 DLC, and I'm playing as like you play as a guy who just punches molded in the face instead of having any guns. It was just really fun, and I think that it's nice that they lean into that ridiculous stuff, like with the tofu.
They do, yeah, and it's obviously not canon, and then they make it clear that it's not. And I do think it's fun that they kind of mess around and play around, because they know that, yeah, this can be a scary survival horror thing, but you can also make it completely ridiculous, and by just making you play as a tofu or something stupid.
What's that? The Harry Potter spell that makes people is it? I can't remember what it is.
Ridiculous.
The Harry Potter spell. Ridiculous. Yeah, I think it's just ridiculous. Yeah, so it's almost like they cast ridiculous on Resident Evil, and it's not scary anymore because you're just a giant tofu. But there's also a third mode in Resident Evil 4 that was called Assignment Ada, which wasn't canon, whereas I'm pretty sure the other one that we mentioned at the start, I'm not going to say the name for the 6th time, was canon. But I wonder, there's no evidence to say that it's coming yet, but I could see that being part of it. Another mode where you play as Ada. Just to sort of keep the game flowing, really. It's clearly been very successful. I've seen it's already had in the UK. It's had a bigger launch than the original release, and I know on Steam,
which is you can imagine. So it was exclusive to the GameCube, which didn't sell particularly great in the UK. So I would hope, being on PlayStation 5, Xbox One, and Series X, I think it's on PS4 as well, and also PC, and you're launching on all those platforms at once, that it would sell a lot more. Plus, more people play video games now than they did back in 2002 when it launched.
I think it came out. Yeah, I think also on Steam it had a bigger launch weekend than Resident Evil Village, which is pretty good going.
Which is to be expected. It's a absolutely beloved title. People love Resident Evil 4 for some reason.
Got any other nice factoids you want to shoot down, Steve? Any other? I'm sorry if my sharing how happy I am with stuff is.
I'm glad.
You in any way,
do you know what? And I really hope you pick it up. It's interesting that we've got two. I say zombie games, but neither of them are really zombie games. Within a matter of days, with The Last of Us Part 1 coming to PC tomorrow as well.
Didn't realize it was so soon. I'm really impressed with that, and I look forward to unlocking that tomorrow morning and giving that one a go. Which is a shame, because now I actually feel like, now you reminded me of that I'm probably not going to pick up Resident Evil for a little while, because I want to play this instead. I just started Inscription today as well, and I was like, oh yeah, this is going to be my game.
Okay.
And now I've got other things.
Next week, I need to talk to you about Inscription. We need to do a bit of a spoiler cast at the end, because it's one of my favorite games of all time. It was one of my games of the year, not last year, the year before, and I bought a copy for Pete, and he still hasn't played it. So I need someone to talk to about that game.
I was testing out my Steam Deck dock that arrived, and I, at work, just like, hey, I'll quickly plug this in and I'll show my manager, and he was like, oh, why don't you play something? And I was like, well, I've got the mouse and keyboard. I'll play something that I feel is more mouse and keyboard. Clicked on Inscription, and I played for like a good hour, just sort of, and he was like, oh, it looks really good.
Did they port over the controller layout
I'm not sure
to the PC version?
I have played it on the Steam Deck for like all of 5 or 10 minutes with the controller, and it was fine. Like, it worked, but I don't know if I can't remember now if I was using it as a faux mouse and keyboard, or if like there was a controller setup that was supposed to emulate the mouse and keyboard. I'm not sure.
Well, there was there's ports of it to PlayStation and Switch. Yeah. So I don't know if they ever ported over the control scheme back to PC, because when what's the game? It's like Crisis Complete. Planet Coaster. That's the game I'm talking about. They didn't bother adding controller support to the PC version once the console version came out, which was a real shame, because it means it's a pain in the ass to play on Steam Deck. I bought a copy of that for my dad, and he just can't really play it with just the Steam Deck. You really need a keyboard and mouse. It's just it's a real shame.
Well, I'm hoping I'll report back. I've got my Steam Deck next to me. I was going to play Inscription after we finish recording anyway, so I'll put it up on the Steam Deck first and let you know what the controllers are like on there for you. So yeah, hopefully by the time we're finished with Inscription and both of us are finished with Last of Us Part 1, maybe we'll dive into Resident Evil 4 and we'll talk about the game some more in the future, right?
I'm going to need a hell of a lot of convincing to pick Resident Evil 4 up after that demo, because I just do not like the game. And it's fine. And not every game needs to be for me, but I can appreciate that this game is probably a masterpiece. But having said that, I didn't think Souls games were for me. I picked up Elden Ring. It was one of my favorite games. It's quickly become one of my favorite games of all time. I need to really finish that game.
I think Elden Ring's on that. My brother, he's recently moved to Bristol. He came home for the weekend because we had Mother's Day and my parents were away last weekend. Blah 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 blah. Anyway, he played when he was back before. Played like, I don't know, a couple of hours of Elden Ring on the PS5. And I think he's been sort of like hoping to get back to that, but has just never been back to do it. And yesterday when he was here, picked up his PlayStation 4 and he was like, oh, I'm going to start playing some games again. Saw on my shelf I've got the Dark Souls trilogy, and he was like, oh, can I play those?
Like,
he took the Dark Souls trilogy with him.
Leave that there.
I've got them all on PC, mate. I'm fine. So he's taken the Dark Souls trilogy with him, and he had no interest in those games at all. But after a couple of hours of Elden Ring, he was like, oh, okay, yeah, I can see that.
It clicks. You get it once you play it, and some people do.
Exactly.
Pete obviously didn't, and it didn't jive with him. But that's the same with me with Resident Evil 4. Not every game is for every person, and I think it's okay to appreciate that as long as you respect other people's opinions of the games that they enjoy.
Maybe you'll be the Pete at the end of our end of year discussion where me and Pete are going, oh, Resident Evil 4, definitely out there for us, and you're going, nah, didn't play it, won't play it. Just like we were with Elden Ring this year, and Pete was angry with me that I chose Elden Ring over God of War and put God of War at number 2 as our game of the year. But hey, we'll find out at the end of the year. So let's move on to the question block to sort of round this out. We've got a couple of questions here. Let's start off with Left Eye Lazy, who said in the Discord, Diablo 4, Street Fighter 6, Final Fantasy 16 are all coming in June and beyond. Coming in June and beyond. Legend of Zelda, the most hyped games of the year. I think I've read that wrong, but still, he's basically saying that Diablo 4, Street Fighter 6, Final Fantasy 7, Final Fantasy 16, and The Legend of Zelda: Tears of the Kingdom are all coming out in the first half of the year. So, what is going to be the most talked about game in the summer of 2023, and can it keep momentum through to the Game Awards at the end of the year? I butchered that. I'm really sorry.
That's always a tough one, like keeping the momentum up, because there's always a game that launches closer, and you kind of have that recency bias. But last year, Elden Ring managed to carry it all the way through. It was was the game on everyone's lips. It was like at the fourth run. And yeah, we had that like, oh, is God of War kind of going to clinch it? And it's just like, no. Yeah, it had great performances, but the kind of real game changer video game of 2022 was Elden Ring. I really struggle. I really struggle to see how Street Fighter 6 comes in contention for the Game Awards, but I could easily see Diablo 4 and Final Fantasy 16 being up there. I think probably those two and Zelda and maybe Baldur's Gate, if that turns out to be well received, could be up there along with Starfield. But you've got a lot of games at this kind of front half of the year. I think the games that kind of we keep talking about are the ones with the vast length, like Diablo and Final Fantasy, because people are just going to continue to play them forever.
Yep, and I think Tears of the Kingdom, Legend of Breath of the Wild really sort of overtook everything in 2017. But I wonder if it's going to suffer from the same situation that God of War Ragnarok had, where because it was, it's a sequel, it's more of the same, like what some people were saying. Maybe because it wasn't as groundbreaking as Elden Ring, maybe we will see things like Final Fantasy 16 or maybe like Starfield, which are so new and so fresh that really it's hard to look at Tears of the Kingdom.
I feel like people are going to be saying Starfield is Fallout in space, and I don't necessarily think people are going to be thinking that's as fresh as maybe Bethesda would like them to. Diablo is a fresh take on a genre that it defined, and just having played the beta for, I must have played like 30 hours of that game in the last 2 weekends.
Wow. Okay.
I loved that game, and I'm sad that I can no longer play it. So if June could hurry up, that'd be great. But I feel like we're probably going to get some surprises as well. You know, we already had Hi-Fi Rush.
yeah.
That was a massive surprise at the beginning of the year. Is
Metro
Redfall going to
Prime
be in there
Remastered.
as well? Like Redfall's this half of the year. That's coming out in May. Is that?
I
Is
think the
that
only
going to be there?
criticism for Redfall that I'd seen was that I had always online, and I feel like the fact that they're addressing that and they're saying, "Oh look, we're going to look into this." Maybe it could, come out of and be the better game.
I mean, that's a real thing to
improvement
like
better.
have issue with, unless you're buying the game outright. But how many people are actually going to do that when Game Pass exists and you've got to be online
That's a good
anyway
point.
for that? It's kind of crazy.
Yeah, that's a good point.
What game are you most hyped for? Because Zelda, I think, is up there for me, and obviously this will be coming out Wednesday. Yesterday, as you're listening to this, was the big 10-minute of gameplay footage, and we'll be talking about that tomorrow on Nintendo Noise. So if you want to hear our thoughts on that, then tune into Nintendo Noise. But that's up there for me because Breath of the Wild is one of my favorite games of all time. But it's closely followed by Diablo because Diablo as a series is probably my favorite game series of all time.
Yeah, I think. The thing with Zelda is that because Nintendo haven't shown or told a lot, we're getting a lot of cryptic stuff. We're getting a lot of, oh look, here's what, here's some stuff. Here's a lot of stuff for you to question. And what's the name going to be and all this stuff. I feel like I haven't had enough chance to actually get hyped for what's there, only what could be. So I'm a little bit worried that obviously this will be alleviated by the time anyone listens to this, because I'm sure by tomorrow, this time tomorrow, I'm going to be going, okay, no, yeah, cool, I'm hyped, I'm ready for it. I think outside of Zelda, because there is all that unknown, I think for me, my current most anticipated game for this year is probably Star Wars Jedi Survivor, just because I know what I'm getting with that game, and they've already shown us enough for me to know, okay, cool, it's set X amount of years later, there's characters returning, there's going to be a lot of like new stuff. They've taken some stuff from Ghost of Tsushima, they've taken some ideas like the stances, and there's new weapons and all that sort of stuff. And it's the last game was a sort of Metroidvania Dark Souls clone hybrid, whatever, set in the Star Wars universe. I don't really like the Star Wars films that much, but I love the Star Wars universe, so I'm really excited for that game, and I think it's because it's a very known quantity.
I completely forgot about that was launching in April. And do you know what? There's another huge game which is apparently launching in September with Spider-Man 2. So
Spider-Man 2, another big one.
Is that another one of the ones like Starfield where it's kind of just like, we're now all talking about this, so are all these games from the beginning of the year going to get talked about as much? I don't know. Maybe it's such a packed year this year. It really feels like a 2017 again, where we had like all of those big titles coming out in one year, and it feels like we've maybe got a repeat of that.
Yeah, and then you got to think about all the remakes that have come out that have been, like we said last week, Resident Evil 4, Dead Space, Metro Prime Remastered will come out to rave reviews. So it's we feel like we're really being treated this year. I don't know whether even, we might even be that we get the early access of Hades this year. We might see Mina the Hollower this year, the Shovel Knight team.
Hades is coming this year, isn't it? Hades 2?
I think it's early access, but I don't know if it will really count for that sort of thing. But we could also see Silksong this year. You never know. They last E3, it was shown by Microsoft as like in like a reel of like things coming in the next 12 months. We could even see Silksong in the coming months, and that's a hugely anticipated title. So there's so much going on this year. We could even see Hellblade 2, Cinema Saga, all of these games that I'm very excited for.
I feel like some of these just need to release in 2024 to even get a look in.
Yeah.
Does Silksong release this year? Does it get a look in?
It has to. I think of all the games that I've just listed there, if there was any game that I wouldn't mind being pushed to 2024, it's Spider-Man 2. Not just because I've got
that one's absolutely not going to get pushed. It's PlayStation's only game this year. That's the one game that seems like a certain that Sony's going to get out, because PSVR 2, I feel like it came and it went, and it fizzled, and I don't know that it came out with the bang out of the gate that they were hoping for. But Spider-Man 2 is the follow up to their best selling game.
Hear me out here. didn't play Spider-Man, so I played the remaster on PS5 at launch. PS5's launch, that is. And I don't think that Spider-Man deserves to be in the same conversation as God of War. A lot of people say that 2018, Spider-Man, God of War, two of the best games of the year. How are you putting Spider-Man, which, for all intents and purposes, when you take away the sort of Spider-Man element of it, is, it's quite a generic tick-boxy open world. There's a lot of repeated content. The story was good and the swinging was good, but, it was a superhero game. There were bits of it that were generic, and I don't think
they
that it's
tightened that
fair
up, though, for Miles Morales. And I feel like they've learned a lot.
I feel like because Miles Morales was shorter and because it did a lot of PlayStation-y stuff, like now you have to walk very, very slowly towards something because we're telling you have to do it now. Don't you get it? It's supposed to be a moment. You're like, I'm just holding down. I want to run.
Did you not get that in God of War, though? Like, we're going to shove you on a boat now.
Yeah, but the boat's fun. The boat, you get to explore in the boat. You get to go around in the boat. The boat's good. Yeah, well, you haven't played it.
I haven't finished Spider-Man, so I can hardly comment on either of them. That's a conversation you need to have with Pete, but I know Spider-Man was his game of the year that year because Spider-Man is his favorite comic, and I know that plays a large part of it.
I did really enjoy Spider-Man. I just feel like I didn't get the reverence when you compare it to things like God of War at that point in the year. When people were saying 2019 wasn't a good year because it didn't have God of War or Spider-Man, you're like, well, what do you mean? You didn't have God of War. Why are you bringing Spider-Man to the conversation? Anyway,
what was I playing in 2018? Oh, Red Dead Redemption 2, Forza Horizon 4. That was a big one. It's like there was some huge games that year that for me, God of War wasn't. It wasn't even on the menu for me. I was busy playing other stuff.
What was I playing in 2018? Let's have a look.
Fallout 76 came out. Super Mario Party, Dark Souls Remastered. You didn't play that?
2018. Oh, I did play that on Switch actually. 2018. I think I was playing Celeste, and that was it from the.
Pokemon Let's Go. I was playing a bunch of that. I'm sure you. Hitman 2. I think that was probably my game of the year. That
would have been yours.
I fucking loved Hitman.
And looking at the fact that The Messenger came out in 2018, that's when we started Loot Pots.
It was, yeah. That was because I remember covering Super Mario Party.
Yeah, terrible year really for all of us, but oh well.
Oh, Obra Dinn. Oh my god, what a game!
That's 2018.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Okay. Diablo. I was about to say, did they even tell me what your most anticipated game was? But yeah, it's Diablo.
Diablo 4, and that's because I've played it now, and I've got a taste for it, and I'm back in that loop, so I'm really excited about that.
Hungry. He's hungry.
Yeah, and I feel like I was excited for Baldur's Gate 3. I couldn't give a shit about it anymore because I'm probably not going to pick it up because it comes out the same month as Starfield, and I will have had a lot of a taste of that genre of game. Very different games that, one's a D&D rules, one's an action RPG, and I run around in a dungeon. But oh man, God, it's so good. It's so good. I'm so sad you didn't get a chance to play it because
I am too.
It was so good.
I had a thought this morning of when I was using the Steam Deck, I was like, really, I forgot I had Battle.net already installed, and I thought I could have just done it on the phone.
Could have just downloaded it,
yeah, but then I thought I had no time all weekend. There was not. I did 25,000 steps on Saturday because I was just constantly on the move.
It was open until 4 p.m. today.
Was it?
Yeah.
I could have done it this morning. Oh,
yeah.
Okay. Oh well, I'll try it in June. Let's move on to the next question. The last question before we sort of round off the show. This is from Pilkey. They say, do you think there's a chance the success of the Switch and Steam Deck will prompt Sony and or Microsoft to get back in brackets into handhelds, especially as these function as hybrids? Now, I had this thought recently.
Yeah.
Specifically about PlayStation. That will the Switch eclipsing the PS4 and being as big as it is, and will the Steam Deck and seeing what their games are capable of, PlayStation games specifically, on the Steam Deck? We've seen people like playing Spider-Man. They use Spider-Man to advertise their Steam Deck. You pointed out they're using Last of Us Part 1 to advertise the Steam Deck on their website. So a lot of these things are, Sony probably sees, okay, maybe we can scale our games quite well. And I wonder if they end up doing a handheld, not quite a handheld PS5, but like a pared back version of the PS5. You're shaking your head. You don't think it's going to happen just because of the Vita, or?
No, because the power consumption of the PS5 is 340 watts. So I just and And while playing a game, its average is about 200 watts. So I just don't see that there's any way that they can do it with the power draw that they've got. Whereas
it doesn't have to be a PS5 handheld.
The Steam Deck
just
uses 22 watts. That's the max.
Well, yeah, it could just be almost like the Vita. It's a separate system, but there are some games that do run on it, and that's the games that maybe run on PC. And maybe if they start to expand into PC and they start to scale their games more like that, maybe they can see a reason to have their own handheld that also
it's a possibility, but like, what is the reason when the Steam Deck exists? These handheld PCs are kind of carving out a niche, and I feel like if they're selling their games there anyway, they don't have to put the R&D into it, the marketing into it. They don't have to muddy the waters. They can just sell their games to people. I think if anyone's going to do it, it's probably more likely to be Microsoft. And I could see them going down two routes. One, they do an official version of what they did. They partnered with Logitech, right? They gave them the ability to do their cloud streaming stuff. I could see them doing like a 5G device like Razer's done, where they're like, call it like a Surface or something, and it's got Xbox branding on it, but it does other things as well.
Surface Play. There we go.
Yeah, well, I think they'll use the Xbox brand for it if there's going to be a gaming-centric device. I think the other possibility is the Series S, which has a power draw, a max power draw of 74 watts, and while it's like playing a game, it's about 50 watts. So it's significantly lower power draw than the Series X and the PS5. It's about a quarter of that. If they halved that, because they're not targeting 1080, they'll be targeting 720. You could get to that 20 watt draw that the Steam Deck targets, and you could have a handheld Xbox that runs Game Pass that supports all of the games out of the box because it's using the same architecture. It's using the same GPU. It can have the same RAM in there. It can have everything in there that's in a Series S, but it's in a tighter package with a screen on it that runs on a battery. And I could see them exploring that route more than I could see Sony exploring a handheld.
I think people call the Series S the Game Pass machine. It's only 200 quid this Christmas. It's a Games Pass machine. You literally just play it to play your Games Pass. I could see them having a handheld Games Pass machine, or if they don't need to do this if they just put Game Pass on the Steam Deck, I think, because I don't think they'd make much money on it anyway if they did release a handheld.
I could see that, but it's something to sell you Xbox All Access again. It's like, your Xbox All Access is over with the Series S and the Series X. I don't know if they're going to do a mid-gen refresh. Sony is doing a mid-gen refresh with the version that doesn't have a disk drive, and you buy that and you kind of attach it on. And I imagine that's going to include a price hike with it. For the disc version. If you want one with a disc, it's probably going to cost you more than it costs right now, even in America where they haven't had a price hike. When you combine the two together, I bet it costs more than $500 now. And I could see them doing it for like $300. Match the Switch's price point, but you can play games that are more powerful than the Switch. I can imagine Nintendo's probably also going to increase the price again. They did a price increase when they released the OLED version. When we get the next Switch, I could see a price increase. Just, I think there's a chance. There's a definite chance. I think it's more likely Microsoft than Sony. I feel like Sony got burnt by the Vita pretty badly. They did not give it the support that they needed.
I think that's entirely their own fault as well.
Oh, 100% it's their own fault. They didn't support it with first-party games. They didn't give it the right controls. They did the typical PlayStation Sony thing of laying into fads with like touch pads on the back that some games utilized, but the majority didn't. They didn't give it enough buttons. So we didn't have, it was pitched as a device where you can remote play your PS4. Well, it didn't have an L2 and an R2. So to do that, you had to touch on the back, and it was a pain in the ass. You couldn't click with sticks in. So it was an absolute nightmare. It was just they focused on the wrong things.
They should have focused more on using it as the wing mirror. No, the rear view mirror in Gran Turismo, like they said they would do that time. That might have actually been the PSP thinking about it.
It was terrible.
Yeah,
This
use it
was
for...
the one
Oh
with
yeah.
like 3G built in, and it was meant to be this like mobile device when we were all getting iPhones, and it was kind of just like,
Yeah.
we don't need this. No one needs this.
3G on a 3G on a like, I'd rather not be paying for 3G for something that I'm going to be using. Like, if I'm not at home, like I'm going to be traveling places and the connection might be spotty. I'm on the train or something like that. So,
Yeah, but you really going to
so
pay for another 3G connection in a
no, I'm not.
handheld
That's the point.
device? You know, like I would
Tether
pay.
to my phone.
I would absolutely pay if I could get 5G on a handheld device now that would enable me to do cloud streaming,
Hmm.
and it feels like there's no latency and the quality's not diminished. I would pay for that, but I would probably just hotspot from my phone.
Yeah, I would do the same. I've got 200 gigs of data, so
Yeah.
why would I pay it for a third thing? Um, how do we get here again? Oh yeah, the question. It's just like, how do we get to the topic of handhelds? But that's the whole question we're doing right now. Yeah, I don't think I think that I mean, this not to talk too much about the Steam Deck, but I think we've heard today or yesterday that the Steam Deck isn't going away. So they say, so it's not like we're going to get another Steam Deck, or they're not going to stop playing with the Steam Deck. So I do think that the fact that the Steam Deck and the Switch are going to continue to run as successful machines, I think we see more competitors from that maybe make it more affordable, less of the Eye and Neo and the people that are doing expensive ones, more of the more affordable average consumer ones. Whether Xbox and Sony get in on that's to be seen, but I don't, I think it's possible for Sony. I think you're right about it being more likely for Xbox, or it's just as likely that they both go, our games are on PC anyway. Let's just focus on the Steam Deck, or let's partner with Switch. Then this new Switch, like Microsoft will end up doing, if the Activision deal goes through, and they go, okay, cool, Call of Duty is doing well. What about Forza? What about these other games that could also possibly be on the Switch? Hi-Fi Rush, for example, stuff like that.
Forza would be great. Yeah, Forza would be
Handheld
really, really
Forza.
nice on the
Yeah.
device. Well, just to end the show,
Yeah.
some breaking news, and I wanna get some thoughts on it from you. Ubisoft
Uh-oh.
has announced that they are pulling out of E3, having announced that they were going to be one of the only publishers at E3. Is this the end? Like, can it go on? Does E3
Wow.
E3 exist? Because they're now
Yeah,
deciding that they are holding their own Ubisoft Forward live event on June 12th in Los Angeles instead. That's not going to be a part of E3.
Interesting. I mean, yeah, I think that's probably the last nail in the coffin, right? If everyone's doing their own thing around the same time and they're not paying, who is it?
ESA.
The ESA. They're not paying the ESA for the space, and maybe they realize they don't need to spend all that money and all that to have all that space. Who's even left? I mean, is that it? Like, surely EA?
No, EA never ever was part of it. They did their own EA Play.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, so that was like adjacent to it. I don't.
Oh, yeah, I've just seen here. No, with 3 months to go, no major company has been announced as officially attending. It's dead. That's got to be
it's
the
gone.
end of it. Wow. What a way to end the show. Yeah, I think Ubisoft are probably right to do so, because imagine being the only people
Who's
at
going to
E3.
buy tickets to come and see it when Ubisoft's the only thing, and we know they're going to be showing off what Assassin's Creed Mirage? Like, okay, cool.
Yeah, I guess I forget that it's a public ticketed event now and not just an industry.
Yeah, it's like
it used to
it's
be.
powered by they say powered by Repop. It's basically it is put on by Repop, who do New York Comic Con and PAX and EGX in the UK, and also own Eurogamer. So
Okay, yeah, over. Wow, what a bombshell to go out on, Steve.
yeah, it's really sad. I'm gonna be sad to see it go. But yeah, they've said that we've made the subsequent decision to move in a different direction, and we'll be holding Ubisoft Forward Live on the 12th of June in Los Angeles. So they're still doing it. They've still hosted their own. They're still hosting their own thing. We'll probably still get the fucking dancing pandas out for Just Dance 2024.
Oh, it will be a shit show, as it always is. There'll be cringy moments. There'll be celebrities that have no right being there for no reason whatsoever. I think it's good that they're all deciding to do their events in summer, and I think it's around the same sort of time as E3 would be, because I feel like if we just had the same number of events but spread out across the whole year, then it would, you wouldn't have that fun, excitement of, oh, what time's this on? When's this happening? I used to get together with friends and we'd sit and watch the conferences. And the fact that you can still sort of do that in a concentrated amount of time, I think is good, and that they're all still planning to do that. I guess it maybe makes more sense for marketing as well to do things like that, and after times like that. So
yeah, like it seems like everything's happening from like the 11th onwards. But then Jeff's got his thing going on. Jeff Keighley's got his Summer Game Fest happening in June 8th. So it's like we've got now 2 weeks of all of these announcements and events happening, and they're like hard to keep track of. Last year was so exhausting. This year's probably going to be exactly the same.
Yeah, I think Summer Games Fest is the one that is exhausting because it does go on for too long. It's the whole like 3 months, and a lot of the stuff's not worth watching. But I feel like these big ones, the ones that are now no longer at E3 and are just going to be doing their thing in the space of the week or two, they'll still be worth watching. I just think that Summer Games Fest or anything hosted by IGN is going to be rubbish. What this does call into question is, does Pete, does he get his big risky pick of the fact that the Summer Games Fest will get more views than E3? Because if E3 doesn't go ahead,
that's down to the judge. That's down to whoever judges it. But I would argue that we need to decide what's part of Summer Game Fest. Is it just Jeff's show, the one show? Because if Microsoft's doing their own thing on June 11th, Ubisoft's doing their own thing on June 12th, you've got all of these IGN events which aren't part of Summer Game Fest. What is part of Summer Game Fest and what isn't? It has to officially be announced as part of Summer Game Fest. Wonder if he's going to have PlayStation involved again, but they kind of did their own thing last year anyway. That was pre-Summer Game Fest. It's going to be very interesting. Nintendo's obviously not at E3. I don't think they're going to really have anything to show. Seems like Tears of the Kingdom is going to be at PAX this week. And they've got their big announcement that you will have seen if you're listening to this now, with the gameplay footage. But other than that, they've not really got anything else for the year. Yeah.
I think for picking judges, who's Pete's worst enemy again?
I think we're probably going to get Chewy or Sierra to do it. So.
All right, fine. I don't think they've got any strong allegiance towards him, so I think that's okay.
Yeah. Sierra only went to his wedding. Yeah.
Did she?
Yeah.
Didn't know that. Oh well. I'm not upset. Not upset at all. So with all that, that's the end of the show. Steve
should have done the Clarkson,
so...
and on that bombshell.
And on that bombshell, that's is that not Alan Partridge?
No, it was from Top Gear.
Oh, okay. Well, on that bombshell, Steve, would you like to do the bit that Pete didn't write down for me, so I don't remember it?
Thanks again, everyone, for listening. Thanks to our Patreon supporters. If you want to support the show, you can head over to patreon.com/FlipScreenGames, and you can go find us everywhere on the web. Make sure you tune into Nintendo Noise this week. But you can find everywhere else we are, including our YouTube channel, over at FlipScreen.games. So if you listen to this as an audio version, go watch the show sometimes. Come see what we look like. I wonder if there's people and there must be people that have no idea what we look like. And do you ever do that thing where you're just like, oh, that person doesn't look like what they sound like?
Yes, yeah, I have that. Like whenever I get into, or they have guests on like the Kind of Funny show, I'll be like, I have a very clear picture of him in my head, and I look him up and go, nah, that like Snowbike Mike. I was like, nah, no idea, or yeah, not what I thought at all. But yeah, I wonder if you don't watch the show, if you just do it on audio, I would like you to draw a picture of what you think we look like.
Yeah.
Send it to us, and then we can show them on the show.
Yeah, Max looks like someone from The Only Way Is Essex, obviously.
Brilliant. Yeah, obviously.
Orange.
I'm all muscles
He's
and
orange.
tan. I'm all muscles and tan.
This is the most British episode we've ever done.
Good. Bring it back. Bring back the Empire. So for the show, he's been. I don't know what the direction is.
You've been Max.
Steve, and I've been Max.
And I'm over on this.
I don't know
way.
what direction to point.
You're there, so I'm the opposite of that.
So
yeah. You know what? Okay. Anyway, we'll see you next week.
That's been Steve. We'll see you next week.
Bye.
Bye.